Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle report. This one has the Beastmen facing off against the Dark Elves at 2,250 points, and they'll be utilizing the Dark Monoliths of Zulgazar, which is one of the scenarios in the Big Red Book, for just a little bit of a different show this time. So let's go ahead and get into the narrative. The assassin said it was here, Valaris muttered to the dark sorceress that walked beside her as she and her coven made their way through the rocky outcrops of the mountains. My mistress demands this monolith, Neketh. What's so special about it, Valaris? The sorceress questioned. It was once the site of power for the blasphemous god Tzeentch. It was created by a wizard named Zulgazar. Is rumored to possess a great amount of ancient arcane lore. Mistress Darkheart is hoping to tap that power to draw out the demons, as they would no doubt wish to corrupt it and use such power for themselves. She wants to find it before the Tzeentch warriors learn of its existence. Our alliance is unstable at best, and this would give them more power in the mountains than our mistress is prepared for. Dreadlord Sinbane moves towards the human empire to distract any attention off of our forces. Do you trust the assassin who said she discovered it? Neketh asked as they continued walking. The answer usually is no. However, she was well paid for this information, and would not want to upset Tilandra at this time. The two made their way over the next rise and looked down upon a valley. In the middle of this valley sat a large hill, and in the middle of the hill was a towering monolith, just as Shadowstalker had described. However, one addition to the description had been left out. On the far side of the hill there were creatures coming out of the forest, beasts growling, howling, and one tall shaman pointing at the same structure that Valaris desired. Beasts of chaos. They must have been drawn by the power of the monolith as well, Valaris stated and turned to the coven following her. My sisters, you shall bathe in the blood of the vile chaos beasts. She mounted the cauldron that floated behind them, and Neketh pointed towards the valley. With a sickening scream, she unleashed her coven. Alright, so here we have the valley containing the monolith of Zulgazar. In the center of the board is a temple of skulls. Atop that is a pyramid that we usually use for arcane ruins or something. That's going to represent the dark monolith. Now this game's supposed to go for 6 turns, and the only determinant of a winner is whoever controls that monolith by having a unit uncontested within 6 inches of it. Any other result is a draw. So if there are 2 units within 6 of it, it's a draw. So it's definitely going to be kind of pushing everybody to get to the middle there. Other than that, none of the terrain really came in too much. I think that mist there was, or the marsh there is a mist-wreathed swamp. Other than that, it's pretty standard terrain. So we'll go ahead and get into the deployment, I believe starting with the dark. Okay, so starting on the left, we have a unit of 5 Dark Riders. Those are not Doomfire Warlocks. He's using them as Dark Riders now. Next to that is a Blood-Racked Medusa. Behind that, the Chariot has his Master BSB on the Cold One Chariot with the Armor of Destiny. In front of that big unit of the Coven there is a unit of 9 Harpies, and we know it looks like they're faced to the side. They're actually faced forward, but he doesn't have a movement tray big enough with their wingspan to face them all forward and spread them out like they're supposed to be, so we're not really sweating it too much. The big unit in the back is a unit of 32 Witch Elves with full command. They have the Banner of Swiftness. In them is the Death Hag Valaris on the Cauldron of Blood, and the only upgrade she has is the Sword of Strife. Then next to that, we have a unit of 35 Harganeth Executioners with full command. They also have the War Banner on them. In with that unit is the Supreme Sorceress Neketh, who is a level 4 to the lore of Dark Magic. She has a Sword of Battle, a Dispel Scroll, and a Talisman of Preservation. And in front of that is his second unit of 5 Dark Riders with Musician, and that's it. Then for the Beastmen on this side, we have the Gorgon, the Mighty Zola. On the ground next to that is a unit of 10 Ungor Raiders with full command. He also has a second matching unit of Ungor Raiders set to ambush. Next to that is a unit of 3 Minotaur with additional hand weapons, full command, and the blackened plate on that unit. Okay, and that big unit is a 50-strong Gore herd with additional hand weapons and full command. He didn't put it in horde formation, mainly because he said he wanted it to have deeper ranks and be more maneuverable, but I think he's 7 wide as it is. He probably should have gone ahead and done 10 wide, but not my decision. With that is Morgul, the Wargore BSB, with Beast Banner, Shield, Many-limbed, Gouged Tusk, Gnarled Hide, and Heavy Armor. There's also a second Beast Lord in there, or I guess the only Beast Lord in there, with the Armor of Destiny, Sword of Strife, and Enchanted Shield. Next to that is a 24-strong Bestigor herd with full command and the Manbane standard. With them is Morgor, the Shaman, level 4, to the Lore of the Wild, with Troll Hide, Hag Tree Fetish, and a Dispel Scroll. So, Dark Elves have a couple of Vanguards, so he moves the first Dark Rider unit up here behind the swamp. And the second one up here to start getting in the way and baiting some of these big units that the Beastmen have. And Dark Elves win the turn to go first. And pretty obvious here, you can see that the Dark Elf player has been learning from his last couple of games and is deciding to be more aggressive. He runs up the Furies, or the Harpies, and both units of his fast cab to start getting in the way, acting as redirectors and blocking things so that he can get the big unit of the Witch Elves up on top of that hill. He also wants to keep his executioners nearby, because as long as his wizard there is within 12 inches of that dark monolith, it has a 3-up ward save, generates an extra power die, and if it's the only wizard within 12 inches, it can cast this death spell that can just create this cyclone and just start sucking stuff off the table. So definitely wants to get on top of that hill and hold it, and he's coming at the Beastmen pretty hard in order to accomplish that. So the Beastmen managed to pretty much stop magic. It didn't really accomplish anything, but we go into shooting, and the Dark Riders here pull out their crossbows and put 2 shots in, or 2 wounds onto Zola here. So he's a third of the way down before the Beastmen have even gotten a turn to go. So I know Michael has not had a whole lot of luck with Zola here, but he's definitely the favorite model in the army, so you can't help but feel bad when the poor guy starts getting punked before he's even had a chance to move. So we go into Beastmen turn 1, and it starts off with Zola charging the Dark Riders, who choose to flee and end up going through this swamp, and 3 of them die to dangerous terrain. So they're going to keep running. I believe Zola attempts and successfully redirects to the Medusa at this point. Or maybe the Harpies. I'll have to check the next slide. But he tries to redirect now that those Dark Riders really aren't much of a concern. And over here, the Gore Herd charge the other Dark Riders. They flee as well and do not go very far. But it is far enough to make the Gore Herd fail their charge. So, could be worse. And so here's where you see where the charges were for this turn. So yeah, Zola did redirect towards the Medusa successfully. The Minotaurs are going at the Harpies, who are choosing to stay? I guess that's the case because we didn't show a reaction from them earlier. And then you can see the Gore Herd there is still trying to reach the Dark Riders for their charge. Oops, no, it looks like I fibbed. The Harpies did flee and end up in the middle of the swamp because they fled the Minotaurs, which was a wise thing to do. Those Minotaurs would eat the Harpies without too much trouble, I think. And looks like after the harpies fled, the minotaurs successfully redirected to the Medusa as well. So as I mentioned a little earlier, the Gore fail its charge. They don't go very far. I think it's 2 inches up. So not terrible, but I think the Beastmen player wanted to get some points early and be aggressive, and I think some of this stalled charging action over here is going to prevent that a little bit. And looks like Zola, though he succeeded his leadership role to redirect, was not nearly as lucky with the charge distance and ends up coming just off the hill. It's got a pretty easy charge for next time. Of course, the Medusa's got an easy charge too if the Minotaur can't succeed in tying. But no, the Minotaur again decide they just don't want to be in combat, which is pretty much part for the course for Michael's Minotaur, so I'm not sure why we were expecting anything different. Admittedly, they had kind of a long charge to make, but they just kind of stagger forward a few steps. So with the remainder of his movement, the Bestigor here come on pretty hard, trying to advance to be able to react, because he knows the executioners are coming. He just needs to do something to give them a reason not to go charging down the throat of that Gore herd. And then over here, the Ungor Raiders begin moving up, not to get in the way of either of the combat units, but they definitely want to get a few shots off before everything starts mixing it up. And magic went nowhere again. They're kind of butting heads against each other. During shooting, however, the Ungor Raiders do manage to put, I believe, 2 wounds on the Medusa. So the Medusa only got 1 wound left, and that's really kind of made this flank of the Dark Elves kind of soft. Other than the big unit of witches that's kind of controlling the middle, there's not a whole heck of a lot on this side of the board that the Beastman player needs to worry about. So we go into Dark Elf turn 2, and I gotta give Skip credit. He is trying to be very aggressive with the Dark Elves. Decides with only 1 wound left, he might as well charge the Medusa at Zola and get a few more wounds off that Gorgon, so you can't really hold that against him. And with that being the only charge the Dark Elves are making this turn, he easily gets up into the Gorgon's face. In good news, however, both the Dark Riders and the unit of Harpies rally. The Harpies are facing back towards the Gorgon now, and I know it's confusing, but the Harpy in the back corner there is actually the one that's facing the right direction. We just chose one of them to kind of show where the unit was pointed, so hopefully you'll be able to follow on, and it's not too confusing. However, the Dark Riders on this side did not. They fled again, ran through the Executioners, who obviously, I mean, they're on a 9 leadership or something. They don't panic, but the Dark Riders over here are heading for the border as fast as they can. And this shot is just me, frankly, playing with my settings on my phone. I wanted to see how close up I could get a picture and have it come out clear. These Dark Riders that just rallied, because it was a feigned flight sort of thing, they moved back up around the swamp. But I just wanted to show you a close-up. These are actually Dark Riders that my wife painted for Skip, so she does commission painting, so if anybody would like to get something painted, let me know. So with that little commercial over, the Executioners come up around the other side of the hill. He's still trying to keep his mage within 12 inches of the pyramid, but doesn't want to get too close. Kind of doing a dance of death with the Bestigors right now. Though I think the Executioners have the better part of that particular dance. And just as a big screw you to the Beastmen, the Witch Elves just come riding their giant 4-wheeler of death on top of the hill. You notice the statue of Cain has gone off the top of it. He's magnetized it because he can't fit it in his box. And at the angle they're sitting, there's no way that poor little statue was going to stay there with those 2 magnets. So he took it off just to make it a little easier to not crush his models. And then over here, he just kind of slides his BSB over a little so that he's within 12 of everything, including those fleeing Dark Riders. So hopefully he can get them turned around on next turn. Then during Magic, finally somebody breaks the stalemate, and the Supreme Sorceress from the Dark Elves drops the Dark Magic Vortexy spell. I don't remember what it is. I'm sorry, I'm not very learned in the Dark Elf magic. But ends up just blowing up a bunch of the Bestigors and kills one or two of the Gore because it kind of moves in the direction you see that red arrow pointing. So shooting is pretty immaterial. So we go into combat. Zola might have taken another wound from the Medusa, but then he turns around and stomps her like a bug. So first points, I guess, go to the Beastmen. So we go to Beastmen turn 2, and Zola charges the Dark Riders who flee, but they flee like a pathetic 2 inches, and Zola actually catches and kills them. So he's got his eye on that BSB on the chariot right now, and there's really, now that the Witch Elves have moved up, there's really not a whole heck of a lot to stop him from going after it. And so the other Ungor Raiders ambushed in here. I think he rolled the result where the Dark Elf player got to pick the side that he came in on. So he picked basically the furthest side away from everything. So now he's here, this unit's here to help the other one hunt some harpies. And over here, the Beastmen units actually back up. I think he's hoping to try and use the frenzy to bait out the witches. Also, he's got some good magic range with the Vile Tide. He just wants to get as many opportunities as he can to throw that spell at the witches and thin them down before he's got to engage. So I can't really blame him for that. And over here, the Minotaur try and move up so that they're out of the front arc of the witches. They may be... I think there was a point of debate as to whether they were or not. It's ultimately not going to matter, but that's just kind of where it is. And during Magic, he uses the Hagbane totem, which lets him re-roll wounds in Magic on a single unit. Obviously picks the Witch Elves and lets loose with Vile Tide and kills 5 of the Witch Elves in the unit with Vile Tide. So that was pretty impressive. He probably wants a couple turns to be able to do that before he engages them. And if they work like that, it sounds like a good plan to me. However, the resulting miscast from the Vile Tide ends up... the Bray Shaman is not wounded, but I do think it kills 3 or 4 of the normal Beastmen. Or the Bestigors is what... And here during shooting, even with needing 7s because of the heavy cover from the Misreath Swamp, between the 2 units of Ungor Raiders there, they do manage to kill 1 or 2 harpies. I think it might be just 1. So Dark Elf turn 3. Over here you see the harpies charge into the side of the Minotaurs. He was trying to charge his BSB in the chariot into the front of them, basically just kind of come flying over the hill, but he ended up failing that charge, so those harpies are in there against Minotaurs all by themselves. More successful, however, was the Witch Elves going straight into the Bestigors. Now this should be pretty easy for the Witch Elves, except for the fact I forgot to mention last turn, he also got off Mantle of Gork, or Gurok on his Beast Lord there. So his Beast Lord is like strength 9 with 9 attacks, and very, very nasty. So, could be rough. Over here, the Executioners failed to charge in... It was a pretty long bomb charge. I think they needed a 12 even to get into the Bestigors. And so they just kind of saunter up a few inches, which may be the best thing for the Beastmen right now, because they are in an opportunity to support where the Dark Elves are. And here you can see the chariot with the BSB has staggered forward a little bit. Biggest downside of this is that the BSB is way outside of bubble for anything important, frankly. But he did succeed his dangerous terrain test going up the hill, so no damage there is at least a little plus side for the Dark Elves at this point, and they kind of need it. And over here you do see that the Dark Riders did rally, and they're coming around. He needs to get some chaff in there between his BSB and Zola, but he can't get close enough to it. So I'm not entirely sure what his plans are. Maybe he's hoping to do some more shooting and take Zola out. So during Magic, he manages to get Word of Pain off on the Gore unit and lowers all of the stats that it lowers by 2. So definitely a move in the right direction. Still, that Beast Lord that's pumped out like crazy is still going to be pretty bad news. But this at least will help the Witch Elves make up for some of that a little bit, hopefully. So over here, they do the combat first here. The Beast, or the Minotaur, kills the whole back rank of Harpies. They are still stubborn, though, because they have a rank. And, of course, now that I'm thinking about it, they're skirmishers. I don't think skirmishers ever count as having a rank. But either way, they break and do not get run down. However, the news was not nearly so good for the Witch Elves. The Witch Elves, frankly, fluff. They did a lot of killing, but the Beast Lord was able to kill the cauldron out from under her, and the Gores themselves did just so many wounds to those unprotected Witch Elves that the Witch Elves lost combat by 1 or 2. Like, it was close, but they lost it and they were outside of the BSB bubble, so they broke and got ran down. So, Beastmen turn 3. Zola decides he wants no part of a Dark Elf character by himself and decides to charge the Dark Riders, who choose to take it rather than run for fear of running off the board. And over here, the Minotaurs declare a charge on the fleeing Harpies, and they flee to this point. And then these Ungor charge at them again, which sends them back within an inch of the Minotaurs, so they're pretty much dead. And here you see the Minotaurs touch, kill, and reform, and the Ungors run up to get closer to where all the action is. Here you see that Zola does successfully get in against the Dark Riders. And here, although I didn't mention them declaring it, the Gore unit slams into the flank of the Executioners, and the Bestigor, I think, attempt to charge, and they fell short, so they're actually an inch away from the front end of the Executioners, and that card behind them, the Executioners do have Power of Darkness on them, so they do have +1 strength at the moment. And over here you see the slow advance of the Ungor Raiders. So in Magic he gets the Gorok spell again off on his Beast Lord, so he's pretty butch. But we go into combat, and the Dark Riders in Always Strikes First kill poor Zola. So he goes down to chaff. But interestingly enough, Michael was very pleased because this is pretty much the best Zola has done and the longest he's lived in any game he's played so far. So we go into this fight, and you can now see a little bit that the Beastigors are further away. But this Gore herd just chews up a bunch of these Executioners, but because they were in smaller ranks, they are still stubborn. So they don't break, but they fail to turn and face. Either that or he chooses not to with the Bestigor there. I'm not entirely remembering which. So over here we go into Dark Elf turn 4. The BSB gets to the top of the hill to claim the Dark Monolith, although I don't think the Gore herd is going to move far enough away to let him claim that uncontested. And over here the Dark Riders are getting in the way so that the Minotaur have something to go at other than the BSB. Although now that I look at it, that lineup is totally wrong for their overrun. Um, so over here we go into. I think magic was a wash. So we go into combat. There's some damage done both ways. And you can see that the gore unit is actually pretty reduced, but they're still fighting on the flank of the Dark Elves. So the Dark Elves just really aren't able to bring enough pain to bear. Um, so over here, I don't know why I showed this out of order. Um, or maybe that was after magic. Yeah, okay, that was after magic. He pops off that spell, so he took out a bunch of the gore. So now shooting, he ends up putting some more wounds on the Minotaur. So we're actually gearing up for that magic, for that combat phase. I'm sorry. Yep, because here is the combat phase. And again, the Beastmen don't do great, but they do good enough. They end up getting just enough off to peel away enough ranks so that the Dark Elves are no longer steadfast. They lose by a couple, but it was enough even with the reroll. They break and get run down. And this is the point where the Dark Elves choose to surrender. They could have fought it out for the next 2 turns, but I don't think the Dark Elves have enough on the board to to make the Dark Monolith not be contested, which is really the only win condition. And he could have kind of played like a putz just to get a draw, but there's no great purpose in doing that. So this is kind of what the board looks like at the end of the Dark Elf surrender.
Margrel, my brother, wonderful work dealing with the pointy-eared Wimon.
Morgul laughed, looking at the now bound Witch Elves. Those that survived, that is.
They will be a useful resource.
Wording that sent the 2 into a cackling laughter. This laughter was broken by the hissing insult of a Witch Elf.
Oh, this one is defiant. I like it.
At this point, Zola had regenerated its wounds and stumbled over, accidentally stepping on a few beastmen in the wrong place.
We will need to break you of this.
The Witch Elves began to threaten and spew insults as the Gorgon picked one up, tossing it into its maw whole. The Minotaurs came in next, but were soon at a standoff with the Gorgon, who had no wish to share.
Zola, be friendly and share the spoils. Don't eat them all.
As the 2, Morgor and Morgrul, left to investigate the monolith, when a nearby Bestigor requested an audience with Morgrul, leaving his brother to study the ancient lores alone.
Great Morgrul, we Beastigors wish to challenge the shaman's rule. Do you stand with us?
The Bestigor was cut short as it was lifted from the ground by Morgrul.
No one threatens, brother.
With a twist of its hand, the Bestigor's neck was snapped. With a single act of animalistic barbarity, Morgrul had again halted rebellion against the great Bray Shaman. But in the end, even Morgrul knew that if his brother's plans came to fruition, none would be left untouched. The reign of the favored children was coming, and none could stop it. So, pretty significant victory for the Beastmen. All in all, this was a blast of a game to watch. It was very unexpected, but I think the Beastmen did great. I mean, there was definitely some strong points that they made in terms of being more patient. I think it's very easy to kind of want to rush in to combat, particularly when you're primarily a combat army. But I think that really would have done him a disservice, particularly against that giant brick of Witch Elves. But being a little bit more patient and using his magic to thin them down definitely helped. And he was able to get into the fight when he needed to, and basically force the Witch Elves to break. And it was a very close thing. Like I said, it was bloody battle when the Witch Elves broke, but I think the Gore only won by 1 or 2. It was a very thin margin, and what really got to it was the fact that the BSB was out of range. So, all things considered, it was a great game. It's definitely good to see our Dark Elf player learning to play more aggressively, even though it didn't really work out for him this time. I think it was a good game all around. I think everybody was very pleased with it, and it was a blast to watch. So, that being said, it is a mite unnerving that the Beastman Shaman Morgul has now obtained the power of the Dark Monolith. I'll be interested to see what dark and evil plan the Bray Shaman has up his sleeve, as Michael's been very close-lipped as to what Morgor's ultimate aims for all this power are. So definitely think it's good to see him being able to advance the aims of the Beastmen. I know he's had a rough time with the number of games he's lost. And that's kind of one of the difficult parts with doing this narrative, is putting forth your story while you're losing. But it's definitely going to be something to keep out an eye for, particularly for my Empire, who really want to come in and kick some Beastman tail again. But we'll see. All in all, it was a good game, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I did try something a little different with my camera this time, so you might notice more close-ups than I've had before. If you guys like that and you think the picture quality is good when it goes up on video, please let me know. Because I did the video right after this, the one I'll have up hopefully tomorrow or the next day, without that close-up setting on it. And I kind of would like to get some input on your general thoughts on how the pictures look. So if you would leave that in the comment, I would very much appreciate it. If this is your first time here, please like the video and subscribe. We can use all the friends we can get. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I do try and get back to everybody. Other than that, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye.